Okay, well, this is Martin Tyner with the Southwest Wildlife Foundation, and uh, happy Vlogmas to everybody. This is our December celebration of the holiday season, and we have been talking about our different wildlife ambassadors. And as you can see, we have a new wildlife ambassador sitting here in front of all of you. This is Striker. This is our new Peregrine Falcon, and he's just a very, very beautiful little falcon, and we've been just having a great time with him. Now, Striker came to us. Go close the door. Striker came to us um, last July, the 1st of July, and unlike many of the other wildlife ambassadors that we have, Striker was not out of a captive breeding program. Striker is from the wild. And so he is a young wild peregrine falcon, and he is sitting here on Helen's perch. That's where Helen sits uh, in the evening time, and where she can kind of come indoors and hang out with the family and watch TV. And so Stryker shares the same perch when I'm in the house and he's in the house. We're working with him. So that's his particular location. Now, Stryker, like I said, was from the wild. Stryker was a young bird, right from an eyrie. Uh, Here in Utah, like most of North America, the peregrine falcon has been completely restored back from the brink of extinction. So the peregrine falcon is no longer an endangered species, and the peregrine falcon was saved by falconers. In the late 1960s, when the peregrine falcon population crashed severely because of DDT problems, falconers brought all of their peregrine falcons they had in captivity together, created a breeding project called the Peregrine Fund. We have raised, as falconers, tens of thousands of peregrine falcons since the early 70s, returned them all back to the wild. And because of that effort, the peregrine falcon is the first animal to be removed from the endangered species list. And because they're no longer an endangered species, uh, properly credentialed falconers can put in for a drawing, which will give them a permit to acquire a peregrine falcon from the wild. And so the peregrine falcon is one of the most highly prized birds of prey in the world for falconry. And because falconers love these birds so much, we put in the time and the effort and the money to restore them back uh, to pre 1940s numbers before DDT was a problem. In fact, within about 100 miles of where we are today, here at the Enoch Wildlife Rescue, I have more than 100 pairs of peregrines. They're doing spectacularly well. And now I actually frequently see more peregrines than prairie falcons, and more peregrines than quite a few other birds of prey because they have returned in a vengeance. There are peregrines everywhere. It's really fun to see them and to work with them. Now, Striker is strictly at this moment a falconry bird. Striker does have a couple of issues that we are dealing with by state regulations. You acquire a capture permit, and now you are legally allowed to go and obtain a peregrine falcon, but there are severe restrictions on when and where and how that you're allowed to do this. And normally speaking, my first choice if I were to acquire a bird from the wild, my first choice is to trap what we call a passage bird, which is a young falcon that is no longer being cared for by its mom and dad. It's migrating, it's on its very first migration. And so as they're migrating through, we will use very safe trapping methods to catch them. And so the bird has basically it's a wild peregrine, but it's young enough that that it's not too terribly set in its ways, and that is my preference. And so a passage bird, you know, it's a peregrine. It knows it's a peregrine. It's raised by peregrines. That's wonderful. And so that would have been my preference. But unfortunately, we are not allowed to trap passage peregrine falcons. Now we can do uh, prairie falcons and deer falcons and merlin falcons, and we can trap red-tailed hawks and goshawks and Cooper's hawks and so on and so forth. We can trap them on their migration, but we are not allowed to trap a peregrine on its migration. So that option is off the table. So your next opportunity is basically to acquire a young falcon that we call an eyas that is still in the nest. And that's what Striker was. Now, if I'm going to pull a young falcon from the nest, I really prefer to get it as old as it is safe. Now, what that basically means is I would like the bird to be as old as possible, but not so old that when I rappel down off the cliff and the babies are in the hole on the edge of a cliff, that the babies don't panic and fly out of the hole and they end up on the ground where they are then subject to all of the predators. And so if they bail out of the nest, they end up on the ground, they're going to be fox food, coyote food, other bird of prey food. They have just left the safety of the nest and they can't fly well enough to take care of themselves. So that's a really bad thing for the birds to be too old and try to pull one from the nest. So that's illegal. Um, we do not want to pull a young falcon that is too young. When they're very, very young, they are not able to regulate their body temperature. They don't have the thick, fluffy down that they need to keep themselves warm, and up in a cliff, it can be quite cool. And so you don't want to get them too young because then they're much more difficult to care for. Even though I have personally raised birds of prey literally from the egg through our wildlife rescue, but also I had a captive breeding program of Harris hawks, and uh, and so I'm very qualified to have been able to raise these animals, and not just birds of prey. I mean, my goodness sakes, we have raised you know, house finches and hummingbirds and all kinds of birds right from, that people have brought us the egg, and the egg was hatching, and we were able to assist it out of the egg and hand raise it from day one. So it's possible to do that, but it's a lot more work. Now, one of the problems when you take a young bird like this from the wild, from a nest, is in the wild, the noisiest one, the most aggressive one, the most violent bird always eats first in the nest. And so they're genetically predispositioned to be, as chicks, aggressive and loud. And they can be extremely vocal. And as they grow and they become flyers and they start following mom and dad around, you know, you go up in the canyons around here, and in the springtime when the young peregrines are just starting to fly, uh, you know, you can find them very easily because they can hear them. You know, you can hear the young peregrines, and you look around with binoculars and you see the young falcons chasing the parents and beating up their parents and trying to steal food from them. They're very belligerent to their parents. And so being a mama peregrine is not necessarily a good thing, because these guys can, as youngsters, could be actually more dangerous than a full adult to work with. And so to pull one at a very young age and they imprint on you because you're Mama Falcon, now you've got a whole list of problems that you have to deal with these guys. And the first of which is they're very loud. And a lot of people cannot stand the noise because every time they see you or even another human being, they start to vocalize. And so we want to remove them from the nest as old as possible so that they're not more difficult to raise and so that we get as far past the imprint stage as you possibly can. But we don't want them so old that they bail out of the nest and end up food for somebody else. And so there's a very narrow window that 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 we would prefer to take a bird. Unfortunately, in the state of Utah, the the Division of Natural Resources, our local fish and game, set that window of time from 10 days to 18 days. And that is right dead center in the imprint stage. And so to me, that's an issue, but I have to follow the rules and regulations. I can't just ignore the rules because I don't like them. And so, my personal preference is to acquire a young falcon at 21 days, which is 3 weeks, between 3 and 3.5 weeks is kind of my preference. So I've got them to the end of the imprint stage, but not far enough down the road that they're going to be jumping out of the nest. And but again, that's not legal. And so basically, I had to pull Striker here between 10 days and 18 days, which is a little bit too young, but that's fine. So we pulled Striker to make sure that I had a couple of days grace on either side because we don't necessarily know the age of the bird exactly until you actually get into the nest. And so the way we identify the bird's ages is we watch the behavior of the parents, and then we calculate, okay, I believe that she's stopped laying eggs, and we go 33 days from that point, and the egg should hatch, and then we go 10 to 18 days from that point, and in that range, we pull our young bird. But we could be off by a day or two in either direction, and so to make sure that I was legal, I I w- wanted to pull Striker at 14 days. So that gave me like kind of 4 days in one direction and 4 days in another direction, dead center. So that way, if birds are slightly older, slightly younger, I wasn't crossing the boundaries to the point of actually either having to leave the bird there for a few more days and then having to come back and disturb the nest again, which would be a terrible thing, or I wasn't going beyond the date to pull in a bird when the state felt that it was inappropriate. So Stryker was 14 days old, 2 weeks, when we pulled him, and he was this beautiful fuzzy little thing, just as cute as you could possibly imagine. He was just an absolute joy. We did everything we could to minimize him imprinting on me. Um, and some of the things that we do is when it comes to food, uh, he has food. He gets food fed as a baby several times a day, but every time food is available, I am not. And so we have these little tricks that we use to put food on in his chamber wherever he's at with us. And when there's food, I am out of the room. I'm nowhere to be seen, and so that when he feeds, he doesn't associate me with food. But when there's no food available, then I'm certainly there, and we can start to socialize him and start to introduce him to people and introduce him to Cody and introduce him to his new environment. And so we've uh, his personality is adorable. He every morning, I go to walk in his chamber and he flies down to my feet and jumps up on my glove and incredibly happy to see us and wants to be held, and he wants to go and have his daily exercise and to go fly, and so he's just a real beautiful little animal to work with. But we did not get past his vocalization, and so he is more vocal than I like. uh, it's getting a little better, as he matures. We hope that he will that the vocalizations will start to become less and less. Um, but right now we have to live with his noise. This is something a lot of falconers have a hard time dealing with. But there are things that we can do. First of all, he doesn't sleep in the house like Helen. He's out in a chamber, free lofted, so he gets to fly around in a chamber when he's not out flying with us and hunting pigeons and things. He is, and so since he's outside, the vocalizations, he's basically quiet unless he sees one of us, and then he can be a little bit louder. But without us present, he's usually quite a bit more quiet. And then so a lot of people, and this is probably a great example of what I want people to understand, is people will see Stryker and he'll be very, very vocal, and they're going, "Oh my gosh, why is he so angry?" I says, "He's not angry. Why is he screaming like that?" I says, "Because that's his baby call. He's genetically programmed to be loud because the loudest and most aggressive one eats first. And so that's part of his genetic makeup. And so it is always wrong to impose human emotions on animals because in most cases we're wrong. And so Stryker is never vocal because he's angry. He's vocal because he's a young falcon, and he, like I said, he's genetically predisposed to do that. I've actually had young falcons um, that were in our rescue center that were 6 months old, even as much as a year old, and as we're taking them through the healing process to get them healthy, all of a sudden they get vocal. And it's like, why are you being noisy? You're obviously not imprinted on humans. You're a completely wild falcon, but it's genetically predispositioned to be that way. And so then once they're back in the wild, they're quiet again. But I've seen, like I said, birds, almost a year old being extremely loud. And so Stryker has a very strong instinct. He is very vocal, and all we have to do is I have little tiny earplugs, and so I go walking out to his chamber. I put these little earplugs in my ears just to protect my hearing, because the volume is actually so great that it can actually do hearing damage. And the earplugs are not uncomfortable, and you just walk out and he's happy as a clam, and you pick him up and he's just a sweet, adorable little animal to work with. And off we go. We go out, we put him in the car. As soon as he's in the car, he's dead quiet. We get him out to the field. He gets noisy when we first pick him up. uh, as soon as I take his hood off, and he gets ready to fly, oftentimes he quiets right down, because it's like, oh boy, I get to go hunt. and get to fly free like a falcon. Uh, and he just really loves his lifestyle that he currently has. He has great joy in watching him fly, and he, here is a bird that absolutely owns the sky. It's fascinating to watch him leave the glove, climb to altitude. His average height is between 300 and 500 feet, but he's gone up over 900 feet in altitude, which is incredibly high. And as long as nobody bothers him, there could be other birds, there could be ravens, there could be other birds of prey in the area, and that's fine, as long as nobody bothers him. But if a raven or another falcon or hawk decides to pick a fight with him in the sky, um, he will attack them. And even though he's just a little guy, um, he'd only been flying for oh 3 4 weeks, and I had a large female peregrine falcon come in and attack him. And I'm going to be willing to bet you dimes to dollars that female peregrine was his bigger sister, because we weren't that far away from where the nest location is. And so she's out of the nest. She's no longer being cared for by her mom and dad, but she's still in the area. And so Stryker was flying. This big female falcon comes flying in and attacks Stryker. And I was horrified because the female is a good third or more bigger than he is, and she could kill him. And so she came in, and I'm helpless. There's nothing I can do. And I'm reaching the bag to grab the lure so I can whistle to try to get him to come down fast. And as the female dives at him, he screams and moves out of the way. And then he starts to fly around. He gets a little bit of altitude. He comes in from behind and he attacks the female. And she screams, and then he is smaller. He is more agile than the females. They're actually better flyers, and so he ended up beating up that female and chased her more than a mile out of the territory, a mile away. And then after he established that she's gone, then he basically flew right back, just as proud as can be, and ready to resume our flying session. And so far, since September, this little guy has driven off that female peregrine, a female prairie falcon, a female marsh hawk. Remember, the females are always bigger, a female marsh hawk, and 6 ravens. And the ravens are more than twice the size that he has dominated and driven out of his territory. And the only sad part of this whole story is that a week or so ago, he was up, he was flying, he was doing a great job. I was ready to flush a pigeon for him. And then I saw him go into a dive. I couldn't see what he was diving at because he was at very high altitude. And then he started to chase something, coming behind to chase something. And it was a Richardson's Merlin falcon. And the Merlins are a very small falcon. And again, they're extremely fast, they're extremely agile, and I was really quite confident that Stryker had no chance of catching this tiny little bullet of a falcon. And he chased it and chased it and chased it, um, clear out of sight. And so I had to go track him down. And I have my tracking system that I can go track him down. So I'm tracking him down, trying to get to where I can see he's stopped. He's on the ground, and he caught the Merlin falcon and killed it and had his breakfast. So that's his actual first wild kill for Stryker. Like I said, he's very, very good at what he does. Um, we certainly, where we fly him, it other than birds pass through the area, it's not an area where you're going to find a lot of other birds of prey other than we have a lot of eagles, and it is a worry that with so many eagles in the area, I lost a beautiful, in fact, the best falcon I've ever seen. I lost to a golden eagle, and the golden eagle caught my falcon in flight and flew off with it and killed it and ate it. And so once the birds leave my glove, they leave my protection. And so that eagles are always a threat to what's going on. But like I said, we're thrilled with Stryker. Does anybody have any questions we can talk about Stryker?
Yep, we've got some questions, but did we ever say why there's only Stryker and not you in the picture?
Well, we kind of alluded to it, but the reason that Stryker is there and I'm not holding him is, again, he's quite vocal, and it would be almost impossible for us to have this interview with him right now. And again, he is not aggressive. He is just vocal. He's not angry, and so that's just part of being a baby. Now I'm going to walk out where Stryker can see me, and I've got the microphone on me so you can see what I'm talking about here. As hi, baby. How's my Stryker? Oh, my baby boy. Yes, you're such a good boy. Yes, you are. So anyway, this is not really good for an interview with everybody, and so I can turn and walk away, and he'll quiet right down. So that's why I'm not in the room holding him, even though I do spend a great deal of time with Stryker on the glove. This is one of the ways we help get him over that noise of his. And so, if I have an extra hour or so, I'll just sit in the living room with him on my glove and, you know, watch a little TV or watch some YouTube videos or something like that. And he'll be noisy, but I've got my headset on, so the noise isn't terrible. And we'll just sit there quietly, and after a few minutes he settles down, and then he's nice and quiet, and then I can pet him and communicate with him, and he's just a sweet little angel to work with. But like I said, they're genetically predispositioned to be vocal, and the best way to deal with that is ignore it. But like I said, if we're trying to have an interview or something, so currently he's not a wildlife ambassador because he's too vocal. I obviously couldn't do a school program or community event program with him, and so we have Helen for that because she's sweet, adorable, and quiet. Um, but I'm hoping that as he continues to mature, that he will um, lose his vocalizations and that he will be a great wildlife ambassador. Actually, what he's really good for right now is I do have groups that come out that would like to see a peregrine falcon fly, and so we'll meet out at the flying field out in the desert, and this is an opportunity for people to come with video cameras and telephoto lenses or whatever they want to bring, and to watch this beautiful falcon leave my glove, climb up to an amazing altitude, and then we flush a very high-speed racing homing pigeon that he has little chance of catching, and to watch Stryker come down at nearly 200 miles an hour, attempting to hit the pigeon at such a high speed. The pigeon twitches, the falcon misses, the pigeon at that point has all the advantage, and the pigeon is able to, as long as the falcon is not above him, the pigeon is able to outfly the falcon. The pigeon goes home, and then Striker comes back to me and lands at my feet, and I pick him up and I feed him his lunch, and then we go home. So as an exhibition bird, um, a lot of people have been to zoological facilities where they've seen a bird show and they've seen the birds fly, from, the back of the auditorium to the stage. And that's always beautiful. But this is a magnitude of steps higher to be able to see a falcon in the wild, um, literally fly to thousands of feet, fly in some cases 3 to 5 miles away, and basically lose sight of it completely. And the only way that we know where the bird is the tracking system. I can see where the bird is on my iPad, and then when the bird comes back uh, uh, into position, then we can locate the bird in the sky and witness one of nature's most amazing spectacles of the world's fastest animal accelerating to, like I said, 200 plus miles an hour. And so that's phenomenal to watch. So Striker's a great exhibition bird for that. What other questions do we have?
Okay, M127 says, it might be the lighting here, but does Striker have a more russet shade of plumage than Helen?
He does. Now we have a couple of factors here. First of which is that this is his baby color. Now Helen's got her full adult colorations, but this is his baby colors, and so because this is his baby colors, um, their their breast is darker. The back is a little more brownish. As an adult, the back gets kind of a blue black color, and the breast is on most peregrines is generally white with very fine horizontal, not vertical, but horizontal stripes of feathers across the breast. Um, the southern Utah peregrine falcons are a little different. We attribute it to the red rock desert country that we live in, but that's probably not true. But the southern Utah peregrines have a tendency of being a little bit more orange-breasted than what is typical. And so when I see a peregrine falcon, I can pretty much identify, well, that's a southern Utah bird, and that's a northern bird because the northern bird has got the whiter breast, and the southern Utah birds have the orange breast. Um, and so with Striker, which was unusual, is Striker is from a brand new pair of peregrines. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but a brand new pair of peregrines that moved into the territory. And the female peregrine had the orange breast, like Helen, just kind of a light orange. The male peregrine had the white, really bright, pure white breast with the horizontal black stripes. And what generally happens is in the birds of prey, we frequently see the males will be colored very similar to the male adult, and the females will be colored very similar to the female adults. And so I fully expected Striker to have a really, as an adult, a really white breast, and with the horizontal stripes instead of a rusty colored breast with the horizontal stripes. But he is actually the darkest orange breasted peregrine falcon that I've ever seen. And so I don't know if he's going to end up next year, if he's going to end up to look like his father, or if he's going to look like his mother, or if he's just going to be just him as an individual and be a little bit different than everybody else. So yes, he's a very, very dark dark orange-breasted peregrine falcon. Yeah, and so good eye. People don't usually see those little tiny differences, but it's nice when people do.
Okay, we've got a comment from Patricia. Who says, "Thank you for all your work with all those precious wild birds. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Take care of yourself as well. Watching from Hungary on a cold, snowy Sunday."
Oh, well, welcome from Hungary. Thank you for joining us. That's wonderful. Uh, I actually have a tremendous attachment to the people of Hungary, and it's because the gentleman who was my mentor, uh, he has been my mentor, my whole life as a falconer, was a multi-generational Hungarian falconer. And though I met him in California where I grew up, but he was the one that taught me to be a falconer. And the Hungarian people, there are some great falconers in Hungary. And so thank you for joining us from Hungary. That's wonderful. Do we have any other questions, DG, going on, or?
Yes, question from Carolyn. How often do you fly Striker? Does he interact with Helen or Belle?
We try to fly Striker you know, at least 5, 6, 7 times a week. Uh, we this is the season that this is the flying season. We try to get them out every possibility. We have a day here, a day there where the weather is windy and it's rainy or snowy or something where we can't get out. And on those particular days, like the other birds that we work with, I try to spend at least an hour or so with them, holding them and hand feeding them. And oh, Striker's looking at the cat. Um, yeah, I know we're a little bit delayed from what I'm seeing, but Striker, you see him turning his head and stuff. I know that the cat is there, and so yes, we try to get them all out. Unfortunately, because of my heart surgery, I was so far been unable to fly Bell and unable to fly Scout, and it kind of breaks my heart. I mean, we socialize with them, we do our educational programs with them, so they get a lot of personal time with me. But this has been a terrible, terrible falconry year because of my heart surgery. I've had to limit my activities. Now, with Striker, we just stand there in the open desert. He flies, um, and there's not a lot of strain and stress when we're working with him, because we just stand there and watch them fly. And oftentimes, at the end of the flight, he lands out at my feet, and we just pick him up and walk back to the car. But with Scout and Bell, I'm going out to the desert, a very, very brisk walk, and a rabbit takes off running, and they go after the rabbit, and now it's an absolute dead run to catch up to them. So it's a brisk walk, and then a 100-yard sprint, and then a brisk walk, and a 100-yard sprint, and a brisk walk, over and over and over again. That's kind of how we hunt, and this is why people don't generally like to come out to watch me fly my hawk, because it doesn't lend itself well to an audience. Where a falcon like Striker, we just stand there and watch Striker do his thing, and I'm not disappearing, 3 or 4 miles off into the desert away from everybody. It's a much better view of how they fly, and so it's I am not cleared by the doctors yet to push that hard. I'm doing physical therapy 3 times a week, everything's going wonderful, and but it has really um, uh, caused me tremendous grief with my falconry season in the birds. Any other questions?
Okay, so we're 41 minutes in, and we're at $847 raised on the fundraiser.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you. That's you guys are just awesome. Your kindness and generosity for our foundation. We're building this amazing new wildlife rescue center here in Enoch, and in fact, one of our next videos that we're going to be doing, I'm going to take you out to the center, and we're going to walk you around and give you a personal tour of the new facility. Along with, we're going to start introducing you to some of our volunteers, and and so we're going to have a lot of not just the animals with this Vlogmas, but we're going to kind of get you guys a little more involved personally. I promised some people, and I'm going to keep my word. We're going to take you to my business where my wife and I earn our living. We own a dog grooming shop, and you can see some of the other side of my life, which is the my our little business, and introduce you to some of our employees, and it should be a lot of fun. And so this is why we're doing the Vlogmas. Um, every morning at 9 o'clock, from now through the December 24th, uh, to kind of get you guys, because we've asked for some people wanted us to update them on what's going on or what we're doing, and so we're trying to honor those requests. Now we do have a little a calendar where DG is pulling off info, questions. Do we have one of those, DG?
Yep, we got number 3 from an anonymous source. And this
Okay.
anonymous person asks, how were the wildlife ambassadors' names chosen, and what was unique about each one?
Okay. The wildlife ambassadors' names are chosen from a variety of situations. Um, Scout, my golden eagle, was was chosen because Scout and I do a lot of Boy Scout Eagle Courts of Honor programs where Scout and I honor young men who have earned Scouting's highest rank, which is the Eagle rank. And we talk about the qualities of an Eagle, what an Eagle Scout should be. And and so Scout is truly a tremendous example of what an Eagle Scout should be. And so that's why we named him Scout. Belle is our Harris Hawk, and she came from a captive breeding program in Louisiana. And pretty young ladies in the South are referred to as Southern Belles. And so since she's from Louisiana, we named her Belle. Helen, because Helen is mostly blind, um, we kind of named her after Helen Keller. Helen Keller was blind and deaf, but she was an amazing ambassador for the disabled. And Helen, who is mostly blind, is an amazing ambassador for wildlife. And Striker, our little peregrine, um, the what better name for an animal, the fastest animal on the planet, that dives vertically at 200 miles an hour and strikes ducks, pheasants, and pigeons. So we named him Striker. And so that's how they all got their names. And so names have come from a variety of sources. We've had, contests to see who comes up with the best name, and they made that out to the public. Uh, and sometimes I just hold this beautiful animal and going, you look like a Striker, so we're going to call you Striker. So sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's other people, but they all get their names from different sources.
So we're at 9:45. Do you want a couple more questions, or is it time for Striker to head back?
Yeah, since I don't have to go to physical therapy today, I'll go ahead and answer a couple more questions.
Okay. Anne asks, hello, How does Stryker cope with colder temperatures? As I thought that peregrines fly to south areas during the winter months. Greetings from Germany.
Well, welcome from Germany. Thank you for joining us. Peregrine falcons are migratory and they do fly south, uh, but our location here in southern Utah, um, we actually it's warm enough here, and we do not have severe cold like we do in other parts of peregrine habitat around the world. The peregrines that are up in Canada and Alaska, yeah, they'll certainly head down south, but a lot of them kind of come here, if that makes any sense. And so I do have peregrine falcons that are year-round residents in our location here, and so the cold weather is not as much of a factor right here where we are. If we go any further south here in Utah, it gets really hot, and so then we have to worry about the birds overheating. But right here we're kind of in that little perfect spot where it's cool enough that we get a little bit of snow, but it's not severe cold, and so we're really fortunate with our location. So
Okay,
what else?
George asks or says, huge fan of your falconry videos. Are there any video hunts we have not seen from beforehand?
Uh, I know we have filmed a lot more of striker flying than we've posted, but here's the problem with striker is striker is a he you know you see him on the glove, he leaves the glove, and he flies so fast, well beyond the capability of our video equipment that we've got. And then the next thing that can be videoed is maybe a tiny bit of his 200-mile-an-hour dive, but it's still just a speck coming out of the sky is about all, and until I walk over and pick him up. Um, we were going to do some more hunting videos with Bell, but with this heart problem that I've had, we haven't been able to fly both Bell and Scout. Now we don't video Scout very much for the simple reason that Scout was severely insulted by a photographer several years ago, and the photographer had no business being anywhere near animals, and Scout got horribly offended, and we got through the photo shoot and he was fine, and I got him home and I thought everything was okay, and the next day I had another photographer that wanted to photograph Scout, and the photographer wanted to photograph him as he's coming in from above the cliffs to come in this high speed flight with his wings folded and that kind of stuff. And so I stood about 15, 20 yards behind the photographer so the photographer could get that scene with me not in the way. And as Scout started coming in to his toy, Scout attacked the photographer. It was wintertime. He had a heavy coat on, had a hat on. The photographer did not get hurt. I was right there, but he did attack the photographer. And from that moment on, I have not been comfortable taking Scout out with anybody else, because he's very territorial. He's very bonded to me, but to be honest with you, I'm even uncomfortable taking my wife Susan out with Scout. And he's never ever attacked anybody else, but when you're flying eagles, they can be dangerous, and I just don't want to run the risk. And so Scout is my guilty pleasure, to go out with him and let him fly, and he and I have this amazing friendship. And he's wonderful for the educational programs. We do, like I said, school programs and scout programs and so on, and he's just phenomenally good around strangers and those kinds of things. But it's not his territory, and he's not hunting, and so it's almost impossible for me to video and work the animal at the same time. So we don't get a lot of stuff with scout. I do have an action cam that fits on my head, and so I'm kind of hoping that next year we can start using the action cam and getting a few more things so I have my hands free and be able to do some video. No promises, but I'm hoping.
Well, guess it's time to wrap it up.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you from Stryker. He's such a beautiful guy. If you guys are in the southern Utah area during the flying season, uh, and you happen to be around when I'm heading out to fly Stryker, you guys are welcome to come and watch him go through his paces. Uh, Such an amazing animal to deal with, and like I said, we're going to have a lot of fun the next couple of 3 weeks, um, kind of showing you around my world. And so we look forward to talking to you guys again tomorrow. You guys have a great day.